Good morning, everybody. You have reached Straightforward Therapeutics, and I'm your host, Gary Duke. And we have launched into a series which I have entitled Soul Keeper, and it's based on this book by John Ortberg entitled Soul Keeping. And so today, if you just started or if you just found us, this is only the second video in this series, and so you are right here on the ground floor. Last session, we told about how important it is to be the keeper of the stream or the keeper of your soul, because the soul is the life-giving part of us. And I want to introduce you to your soul today. I believe personally, this isn't in the book, but what I believe that your soul is the most powerful part of you and me. Your soul was that part of you that was created by God to connect with God. And as a result, it also is what connects us with other people. When you have an intimate relationship where you are deeply bonded, your soul is very much involved. And if your relationship with God is messed up or is not where it needs to be, your relationship with people are not going to be where it needs to be. And so your soul is extremely important. We talk a lot about the soul in church circles, and most people believe they have a soul. But the question is, what is your soul? If you had to describe your soul, what would you say it is? It's kind of hard to describe. You know, in the book it talks about how that a lot of people have the image of Daffy Duck. Remember the old Looney Tune cartoons where Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and occasionally Daffy Duck would have something happen to him that momentarily killed him, even though he came back to life. And you would see this little invisible part of Daffy Duck start rising up from his body with wings and a harp and a halo. And that kind of represented his soul. You know, it is your soul that is going to go to heaven. It is your soul that's going to go to heaven. But your soul is going to represent you. I mean, it's going to be you. You are your soul. You know, it's not when I die and I go to heaven, I'm not going to be a different person when I stand before God than I was when I was right here. Now, I will be changed eventually, okay? You know, God will change us. We will have a glorified body, and there's going to be changes that take place. But when I stand before the Lord the very first time, after leaving this earth, I'm going to be Gary Duke. I'm going to be the same Gary Duke that's talking to you right now. And so that's why it's so important to be aware of the fact that the greatest gift we can give to God is the person we are becoming. And those areas of our life that we just can't seem to get a hold of, and we try to figure out why. Why can't I change this? It's because we're not doing soul work. See, we're made up of our will, which is really our heart or spirit, or our will is the part of us that is able to make decisions. It's really what makes us a person to a certain extent, because we can choose things, right? And oftentimes our will is very much involved in choosing bigger things, such as where we're going to live or who we're going to marry or what car we're going to buy and that sort of thing. But a lot of the little attitudes and habits and behaviors that we have, our will really isn't effective enough to really change that. Because if it was, all we'd have to do is just tell ourselves, I'm not going to do that no more. And we wouldn't do it anymore. But then it resurfaces, doesn't it? Like our anger issues or our addictions or, our poor attitudes or our judgmentalism or whatever it might be. Our wasting of time, things that we know we shouldn't be doing, but we do it anyway. But we tell ourselves, I'm not going to do that no more. But we do it, don't we? And we will continue to do it unless we do some soul work. We're made up of our will and our mind, which really encompasses our thoughts. In ancient world, that encompassed our thoughts and our emotions. Our mind did. And so, your thoughts and your feelings, which are very powerful. And actually, your will is no match for your thoughts and feelings. You know, addiction really is when we submit our will to our feelings. When we submit our will to our emotions. I want to feel this way, and so I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make myself feel this way. That's really what addiction is just submission to our feelings, okay? And our thoughts and our emotions are much more powerful than our will, because they can talk our will into doing just about anything. We can rationalize our behavior if we, pretty easily, and our will cave in, And then you have your body, okay? And our body is very important, because, imagine what you would be like if you had a will and a mind, but you had no body. Our body is our power pack. Everything that we do in our body. And our body takes on many of these attitudes and these habits and behaviors. And, and we outsource a lot of things to our body, which is good. I don't want to have to, when I was a little kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old, I had to really think hard about tying my shoes. But, I don't have to think hard about tying my shoes no more. My biggest problem now is just reaching my shoes, But when you drive a car, I don't want to ride with somebody who has to think about whether or not they think it's a good idea to put their brake on when someone stops in front of them. I want them to be able to act immediately, without any thought in the matter. And so there's a lot of things our body takes on that is good in the sense that, we outsource some of these behaviors so that we don't have to spend our time thinking about this and that and the other. But then there's so many of those behaviors, the way we look at people and, the way we spend our time, whatever, a lot of things that we know we shouldn't do. And we ask ourselves, why do I do this? Why do I do this? I think the answer lies a lot in our soul. Our soul. We have to do soul work. Our soul is so much. Our soul integrates everything that we are. It brings all of it together. It brings our body, our mind, our will, all of it's together. If you thought about a set of concentric circles, with the will being the center and your mind being the next circle, and then a bigger circle would be your body, and then the final circle would be your soul. Your soul's like a computer program that runs it all. It integrates it. It integrates it. The word integrity, same word that we get integrate. And when our soul is sick, we become disintegrated and we lose integrity. We do. And so like so many times the things that we have struggled with, maybe you've been a Christian for many years and you've been in church most of your life or whatever, and you look around and, as a pastor, I can tell you there's a lot of people I preach to that really didn't see much change come about in their life, even though they showed up for service every Sunday. And I was preaching the Word of God every Sunday. But a lot of times, change did not come about because there wasn't the type of soul work. Discipleship is soul work. Spiritual disciplines are soul work. It affects who we are as a whole. And that automatically splashes over into many of these areas that we're going to be talking about that we're trying to address. When I think about my soul, and I think about I used to travel 1,000 miles a week, and I love music. And I have a great respect for talent. I mean, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, going and listening to blues artists, Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Nitzinger, Freddie King. I mean, I was a blues freak. And but rock and roll was just as good. And then I would go to the disco, or I'd go to the country western bar, when I was unsaved and lost out in the world. It didn't really matter because I liked all the music. All of the music was great. I mean, I still love a lot of those those types of music. And unfortunately, there's some types of music today that I don't really call music. But, that's another story altogether. But I have a great respect for talent, whether it's Southern gospel music or Christian worship music or whatever it might be. It takes talent, and I have a huge respect for that. And I remember thinking to myself one week, I thought for some reason, I thought about classical music, like Mozart, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, that type of classical music. And I've always found it hard to listen to, and I was trying to figure out, man, I recognize the fact that these people are super talented. And, I was a kid in Dallas, Texas. I don't know if they still do this or not, but if they don't, it's sad because it was really a highlight of every one of my years in elementary school. But back in the day, when I was a kid, they used to take all the kids in the Dallas Independent School District to the Dallas Symphony once a year. And the symphony put on a presentation, a concert, and that concert was kind of geared towards kids. It was very upbeat and stuff. But it was so cool, man. I mean, the Tiffany drums and the cymbals and and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. And I'd love to go to another symphony. I haven't been since I was a kid. But, I thought, why is it so hard for me to listen to this music? I couldn't figure it out. Like, I know these people are talented. The music's beautiful. Why is it hard to listen to? And so I determined one week, as I was traveling 1,000 miles a week, I thought, this week I'm going to listen to nothing but classical music. I'm not going to listen to anything but classical music. I'm going to figure this out. And you know what I found? What I found is that the reason why it was hard for me to listen to classical music is because you listen to it with your soul, not with your ears. When you listen to a country song or a gospel song or whatever, basically they're telling you what to think about, Some guy's leaving his wife or, somebody done somebody wrong or whatever, The girls are all wearing bikinis on the beach in San Diego or whatever the song might be, right? I mean, you've got something to think about. But when you listen to classical music, you don't have those lyrics to guide your thoughts and your thinking. And I found that I had to listen to it really with my heart and my soul, I had to let it sink in, I'm still not a huge fan. I don't sit around listening to classical music. I probably should, but I don't. But I did realize that there's a deeper level. If I go through the Smoky Mountains, we have friends who live out in North Carolina, and occasionally we go that direction. And I've been through the Smokies a number of times, and whenever I go through there, I always weep. There's something about the Smoky Mountains that just tears me up, man. I mean, it's the beauty of that scenery is just overwhelming for me. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to Ireland with my wife and my daughter and son-in-law, and we went to Glendalough, where St. Kevin lived, and there was a beautiful lake there. I'm getting teared up thinking about it. I mean, I just had to go over there and stand at the bank of that lake and just soak it in. Just soak in the beauty and the goodness of God. And I felt like I was standing on the banks of heaven, If I go to the beach, just staring out at the ocean, there's a certain feeling I get that I don't get anywhere else. That is your soul. That's your soul, man. It's embracing the beauty and the nature of the creation of God. It was made to connect with God. It was made to connect with God. Now, we're going to be talking in this series about a number of things that helps make our soul healthy. Okay? And you have to be the keeper of the stream. You are the keeper of your soul. I am the keeper of my soul. I mentioned to you in the last session that every year for about the last 8 or 9 years, I've read this book. And the reason why is because it gets me centered on really what's most important. Because what's not most important is not self. The world is consumed with self. Okay? But if we focus on self, we lose sight of our soul. Jesus said that what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world, but he loses his soul? And John Ortberg talks in the book about how that previously, like most of us, he felt like that Jesus was saying, hey, what does it matter if you get everything if you go to hell? And Dallas Willard told him, he said, that's not what he was saying. It's not about heaven and hell. It's about what is really, truly satisfying. And if you gained all the material possessions of the world, okay, and you lost your soul, and you did not pay attention to who you really were, who God created you to be, and invested in your soul, you would have gained nothing. You would have gained nothing. And we see people all around us who are just like that, who gain very little from their actions because they are consumed with self. They're consumed with self. Sigmund Freud was wrong about a lot of things, but he wasn't wrong about everything. And one of the things that Sigmund Freud knew is that a lot of the issues that people have in their life have to do with their soul. Did you know the word psychology or psyche is from a Greek word that literally means soul? The word means soul. So a psychologist really should be somebody who's not dealing with your mind. He should be dealing with your soul to a certain extent. Are you ready to do some soul work? I am. You know, as I launched into this series and just started, I've been listening to the chapters and reading the book over, you know, trying to get myself really focused and acquainted. I want you to know that this is a journey that I'm on, I want to be on, and I want it to take me somewhere. And I hope that this is a journey that's going to take you somewhere. But we need to start thinking in terms of really how our soul is affecting our life and what are we doing to attend to that soul, and what do we need to be doing to attend to it, because so many other things vie for our attention. And so as we move forward, I hope that you'll get something out of this, and this is a great place for you to journal. I mean, you know, get your journal out, those innermost thoughts that you have, the prayers, the things that you're struggling with, whatever. I mean, start interacting on paper with it and let God begin to do a work in your life. And I think it'll be a blessing. So I'm looking forward to talking to you next time, and I will see you then. God bless you.